Yo, yo, what's up, fam? Talking like a cool person now, like a young person. My name is Jeremy Siskind. This video is already off the rails. I'm the author of Jazz Piano Fundamentals. If you don't like that, check out Solo Standards for Piano. If you don't like that, check out Playing Solo Jazz Piano. If you don't like any of that, I got nothing for you. But head on over to jeremysiskind.com, get a great book deal. Today, I want to talk about something very, very dear to my heart. I love working with vocalists because I love songs. I just love good songs, and I love people who sing them well and care about them. So I'm calling this video First Lesson in Vocal Accompanying. I mean, man, if we listen to the history of different pianists and vocalists together, you're going to hear such a wide range. You're going to hear, of course, geniuses like Bill Evans play with Tony Bennett. There's a recent beautiful album of Bill Charlap playing with Dee Dee Bridgewater. You'll hear Bill Charlap playing with Tony Bennett a little bit as well. Let's see, what are some of the other, Fred Hirsch and Nancy King, Fred Hirsch and Norma Winston, Fred Hirsch and Janice Siegel. Just so many great albums. But, the problem for students is, A, you're not that good of a pianist. I'm not that good of a pianist. I'm no Bill Evans, I'm no Fred Hirsch, I'm no Bill Charlap, I'm no blah, blah, blah. And second of all, the vocalists you're working with are not that good either. They need a lot more direction. They need a lot more help. So where would you start? That's where the question I'm hoping to answer today. And so let's go over some basic, just like foundational principles of accompanying. And so the first one is help your vocalist. Maybe if you're working with a legendary, wonderful, incredibly competent vocalist, then they might not need any help at all, depending on the tune. But the two areas where you really want to help your vocalist, the first one is rhythm. You just want to make the tempo and the feel so clear. And, there's all these sayings about like, oh, Frank Sinatra was a singer who could make a band swing. 99.999% of singers can't make a band swing. They rely on the band to help them swing, or bossa nova, or whatever the groove is. So give them groove, give them really clear rhythm. Because they're focusing on all these other things, right? They're focusing on the lyrics. They're focusing on actually like to make gestures. They're focusing on connecting with an audience, pitch. So give them really clear rhythm, and then give them a really clear sense of the harmony, so that they're not having to really search for their melody notes. They're not having to, be like, is this gonna sound right? So help them out by being really clear. I'm gonna show you specifically how to do that, how to make it really clear. Okay, and how to make it really grooving. But there's a limit to how much you want to help them. Unless they specifically ask, I would never play the melody. Never is an exaggeration. Never. Rarely, maybe, is better. Play the melody with the vocalist, right? Especially in jazz, we want the vocalist to take a lot of liberties, to phrase things the way that they want, to delay things, back phrase, improvise a little bit with the notes. So if you're trying to plunk out the melody, unless they've specifically asked you, you are getting in the way. So don't do that. Don't play the melody with the vocalist. We have to be very aware of volume. Now, the good news is that a lot of jazz vocalists use a microphone. And so, as compared to in other genres where you might be accompanying, you don't have to be quite so aware of volume. But we still want to make sure we're playing under the vocalist, having a nice balance between our hands. Number one rule of accompanying is if you can't hear the melody, play softer. I'll say it again. If you can't hear the melody, play softer. We always, whether we're playing with a vocalist or not, if we're playing a song with a lyric, we want to be aware of the lyric. And that doesn't mean that you have to change your approach, with every word. That would get obnoxious. But when we're creating a vibe, when we're engaging with the song, we always want to be aware of a lyric. Let's see, what else do I need to say? Introductions and endings are definitely, going to be really important to take the lead and be clear. I guess maybe this falls under the umbrella of we want to be really clear, and that is one way that we help them. You know, we always want to really show them where our solo is over. We want to show them where they should enter. We want to show them what ending, if we're going to lead an ending, we want to show them what ending we're suggesting. If we're, you know, going to move from being in time to being out of time, you know, like at the end of something, then we want to make it really, really clear that that's happening. So really be clear, telegraph what you're trying to lead if you are going to lead things. So how would I suggest, like, let's get into details now. These are our like first principles. But how would I suggest, let's take Fly Me to the Moon. A million pianists have played Fly Me to the Moon with vocalists. And in my imagined scenario, there's no bass player. So as the pianist, there's no drummer. As the pianist, you have to be the entire band. Now, again, let me say that I would teach this differently to people at different levels. This is your very first lesson in vocal accompanying. So, you know, we're going to treat it as such. So here's our chords to Fly Me to the Moon, and where we're going to go. Sorry, I'm going to reverse that that camera change. Where we're headed is something like this. So that the vocalist can sing, and I will ask you for your forgiveness. I'm very, very much not a singer. Fly me to the moon, and let me play among the stars. Let me see what life is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, I'm available for bar mitzvahs or parties. Okay, so we're gonna start there. And so what we're doing, if we bust out technical terms, is we're gonna be playing a bass into, and then we're comping in a Freddie Green style. And I'll show you another way of comping if we have time. Okay, so bass in 2 means that we're primarily playing half notes in the bass. The groove is based around half notes, although you might have noticed that I ornamented that groove a little bit. Okay, the things that I want you to really get in terms of the bass line is that the bass needs to be just about as low as possible on the piano. Most pianists who I hear play the bass too high. So you don't really want to be in the staff. What I would suggest is that the highest note that you use for the bass is this C here, what we call C3 on the piano, because it's 1, 2, 3 C's from the bottom. So let's see if I actually set up my tech well. Hey, I did. So notice where all those notes are coming in. They're under the staff. In fact, they're so low that maybe some of them got halfway cut off by the note generator, whatever you call it. The technical name is Chordie of the program. If you ever want this, it's Chordie. Okay, so we want to play the bass low. And we want to play the bass legato. No space in between. Sometimes that takes some fancy fingering, okay? But no space in between bass notes. This is really step one to making a really supportive accompaniment, because the bass is what everything else is sonically built upon. Now, if you're wondering what notes I'm choosing, you know, we could have a long talk about this, but for your first lesson, I would suggest that you use the root and the fifth of each chord. And how that's going to, you know, not get completely mind-numbingly boring is that you're sometimes going to go up from the root to the fifth, and you're sometimes going to go down from the root to the fifth. And, you know, bass lines are melodies. They're very simple, repetitive melodies, but we want to think of them melodically. So, when we do this, I'm trying to form connections where it's possible between measures. You can see that E leads down by step to the D. So that's what I mean by a connection, a stepwise movement. Okay, so I'm going to be writing all of this bass line an octave above where I would play it. So I'm writing 8VB here, so we know to take all of it down by an octave. So here I've got root, fifth, root, and then it happens to go down to the 5th of D minor, D to A. Remember, we're an octave below here. That A, remember, we're making a melody, is going to connect to G, root, and then that's going to go up to the 5th, and we'll alternate again. Root down to the 5th, and these are half notes, so they should really have stems technically. Okay. And if you are feeling inspired, if you're loving this, I'm going to give you 2 ways to vary this. The first one is by putting in what I refer to as a skip beat. And it's just going to be repeating an 8th note, an extra 8th note, to add a little bit of an extra swing feeling. That's one thing you could do. Or you can add an extra quarter note on beat 4. And what did I add? I added the root. So root, 5th, root, new root, 5th, root, new root. Groovy, right? So with just those couple of ornaments, we can start creating a little bit of variety in the bass line that's going to give it more of a swing feel. Now, in the right hand, the most important thing for the chords is that you're going to play the 3rds and 7ths. We could talk for hours and hours about voicings. I'm going to link you to some videos about voicings where you can learn more, but we're going to focus on 3rds and 7ths, and we want to keep them in what I call the magic range. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you've heard about this, which is it starts right where the bass line leaves off, right on that C3, and goes up to G4, the G above middle C. Okay, and because it's kind of in that range, I'm actually going to use bass clef instead of treble clef. And I told you we were going to do this in what we call Freddie Green accompaniment style. Freddie Green was a guitarist with the Count Basie Orchestra, and he was known for playing all 4 quarter notes of the measure. So no syncopation here. This is why it's your first lesson, nice and easy. So it's going to go chunk, 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 chunk. Okay. So we are going to have the 3rd and 7th for A minor. It's going to be C and G. And as we progress from chord to chord, we're still going to be using the 3rd and the 7th of each chord. So this is F and C for D minor, but it might change whether the 3rd is on bottom or the 7th is on bottom, because we're trying to make it nice and smooth, right? What we refer to as good voice leading. So for that very first chord, the 7th was on bottom, the 3rd's on top, and then it reverses for the 2nd chord. And this is one thing that you discover if you study jazz a lot, is that whenever we're moving in the circle of 5ths, the smoothest connections are going to be created by alternating between 3rds and 7ths. Sorry, I had just a mental breakdown there as I was attempting to write and talk at the same time. Now, for these chords, so we want to play them pretty soft. So we're kind of imitating a guitar strum, right? And we're playing every beat. If we play these chords loud, it sounds like rock music, right? If I'm trying to play a rock ballad, if I'm trying to play Journey, I'm gonna like really pound out these chords. But I want to do it differently here. First of all, no pedal. Second of all, softer. Third, long but a little bit of space after. Okay, so a little delicate. We're thinking about kind of imitating that sound of a strummed guitar. Again, I will restate what I said. No pedal. Listen to how it sounds if I do use the pedal. play a Sarah Bareilles song. I'm not gonna write you a love song. Right? If it's pedal, it feels totally different. This is a no frills accompaniment. It's not very fancy. The only fanciness is maybe with the ornamentation in the bass. But if you're a new person to jazz piano and accompanying, this is absolutely where you should start for swing tunes. And I'll certainly make more videos and link you to more videos where I show you some other next steps for how you are accompanying. That's where we're going to leave it for today. If this was a good level for you and you want to go more in depth, Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1 is really the book for you. That will tell you this and way more about how to form bass lines, about how to form voicings, about how to comp, how to put those into rhythm. So check it out. You can get it at jeremysiskind.com. You can get it on Amazon, anywhere fine books are sold. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good luck with your vocal accompanying. Oh, wait, I didn't give you a secret word. I give a secret word at the end of every video to see who watched to the end. So why don't you say something about the moon, since we are focused on Fly Me to the Moon. Okay, bye-bye.